There are many things people tell you about getting older. They tell you your body will change, your energy may change, and time will go faster. But there are other things no one really tells you. The emotional things, the quiet things, the truths that only life teaches. And today, I want to talk about those. Hello, my dear friends, and welcome. If you are new here, I'm so happy you found your way to this channel today. And if you are one of my returning friends, thank you so much for coming back and spending this time with me. It truly means more than you know, and I never take your presence here for granted. Today, I want to talk with you about something very honest, very personal, and I think something many of us feel deeply but do not always say out loud. And that is this. No one told me this about getting older. Now, of course, people tell us certain things about aging. They tell us our bodies will change. They tell us time goes faster. They tell us we may need more rest, more patience, more acceptance. And yes, all of that is true. But there are other things, quieter things, deeper things, that no one really explains to you. No one tells you how aging changes your relationship with time. No one tells you how your heart softens in some ways and hardens in others if you are not careful. No one tells you how much peace starts to matter. No one tells you how strange it can feel to look in the mirror and still feel like yourself, even though the face looking back at you has clearly lived a long life. No one tells you how much you begin to crave what is real and lose your appetite for what is false. And perhaps most of all, no one tells you that getting older is not just something that happens to your body, it happens to your soul, to your priorities, to your tolerance, to your view of love, time, friendship, home, and what really matters. So today I want to share with you some of the things no one really told me about getting older, but life has taught me anyway. And if any of these speak to your heart, I hope you'll tell me in the comments, because I always love hearing from you, and your wisdom helps so many women in this community too. So let's begin. The first thing no one told me is that peace would become more valuable than excitement. When we are younger, excitement seems so important. We want stimulation, movement, plans, romance, adventure, possibility. We want life to feel full and vivid and maybe even a little dramatic sometimes. We often mistake intensity for aliveness. We think if something is exciting, it must be good. If something feels calm or ordinary, maybe it is not enough. But no one told me that there would come a time when peace would feel like one of the greatest luxuries in the world. A peaceful home, a peaceful morning, a peaceful relationship, a peaceful mind, a peaceful evening where no one is demanding too much from you and your spirit can just rest. What a gift that is. No one told me that one day I would care less about being entertained and more about being settled, less about being impressed and more about feeling safe, less about what sparkles and more about what soothes. And I do not think that is a sad thing at all. I think it is wisdom. Because peace is not boring. Peace is healing. It is what allows the nervous system to soften. It is what helps the heart recover. It is what makes your home feel like a sanctuary instead of just a place you sleep. It is what allows joy to be felt in the small moments that youth often rushes right past. No one really told me that as I got older, I would begin to protect my peace almost the way a mother protects a child, tenderly, fiercely, with discernment. And that has changed my life. The second thing no one told me is that time would start to feel completely different. When you are young, a year can feel long. Even a hard season feels survivable because there is this sense, whether spoken or unspoken, that you have plenty of time to fix it, plenty of time to become who you want to be, plenty of time to say what you need to say, plenty of time to heal, plenty of time to start over. And then, one day, time begins to feel different. Not frightening exactly, just precious. You start to realize that a year is not just a year. It is a portion of your life, a season, a chapter, something you cannot retrieve once it has passed. No one told me how much older age would sharpen my awareness of this. No one told me that I would begin to think more carefully about what deserves my time and what does not. That I would become more aware of the cost of wasting whole afternoons in resentment, worry, comparison, overthinking, or trying to explain myself to people determined not to understand me anyway. Time becomes sacred when you begin to feel its finiteness, and strangely, that is not always depressing. In many ways, it is clarifying. You become less willing to spend your hours in foolishness, less willing to drag old stories behind you, less willing to live by delay. You begin to understand that a beautiful life is not built from endless time. It is built from how lovingly, truthfully, and consciously you use the time you do have. No one told me that getting older would make ordinary time feel more holy. A quiet breakfast, a phone call, a walk, a little music in the afternoon, a peaceful hour at home, a conversation that means something. These things begin to shine differently. The third thing no one told me is that loss changes shape as you age. Now this is a tender one. We all know in theory that aging brings loss, but no one really tells you how many forms that loss takes. You may lose people, you may lose roles, you may lose old dreams, you may lose the body you once had, you may lose a version of yourself that you thought would always be there. You may lose certain illusions too, and not all of those losses happen in dramatic ways. Sometimes they happen quietly. You realize a friendship has changed. You realize your energy is different. You realize you are no longer interested in things you once thought mattered. You realize some people only loved the version of you that was endlessly available, endlessly giving, endlessly accommodating, and that can be painful. No one told me that aging would involve little griefs as well as big ones. Not just mourning people, but mourning seasons, mourning the ease you once had, mourning how quickly you used to recover, mourning old hopes that no longer fit. But no one told me something else either. That loss, if it doesn't harden you, can deepen you. It can make you kinder, more aware, more grateful, more careful with love, more reverent towards simple things, more tender with yourself and others. Loss strips away what is unnecessary. It shows you what really mattered all along. And I think that is one of the great secret sorrows and great secret gifts of getting older. It breaks you open, and then it asks you what kind of person you want to become with what remains. The fourth thing no one told me is that some relationships would become clearer with age. When we are younger, I think we often work harder to keep relationships going, sometimes even when they are no longer healthy, mutual, or honest. We explain too much, we excuse too much, we overgive, we overfunction, we tell ourselves that loyalty means enduring almost anything. But no one told me that age would bring clarity, Not bitterness if we are careful, not cynicism if we stay soft, but clarity. You begin to notice who leaves you feeling calm and who leaves you feeling drained, who listens and who merely waits to speak, who values you and who merely uses your kindness, who loves your actual self and who only loved your usefulness. That clarity can be uncomfortable at first because sometimes it asks you to admit things you didn't want to see. It asks you to stop romanticizing one-sided relationships. It asks you to tell the truth about where you are cherished and where you are merely tolerated. No one told me that getting older would make shallow relationships harder to endure. You simply do not have the same appetite for pretense. You do not want endless gossip. You do not want exhausting emotional games. You do not want to prove yourself over and over again. You do not want to spend your precious life trying to squeeze nourishment from empty connections. And this too is a gift, because it makes room for what is real, for sincere friendship, for gentler love, for mutuality, for conversations that actually feed the soul. No one told me that getting older would not just reduce my tolerance for nonsense, it would increase my hunger for authenticity. The fifth thing no one told me is that I would still feel young inside in certain ways. This one is very strange, isn't it? You grow older on the outside. The years pass, the face changes, the body changes, the world begins to categorize you differently. And yet inside, there are still parts of you that feel very much the same. You still laugh at certain things the same way. You still remember certain hopes. You still feel hurt in old familiar places. You still feel joy, longing, tenderness, curiosity. You still sometimes feel like the younger self who is simply living inside an older body. No one told me how odd that would feel, to look in the mirror and see age while feeling an inner continuity that has never fully left, to carry all your former selves inside you at once, the little girl, the young woman, the mother, the dreamer, the one who struggled, the one who loved, the one who survived, the one who began again. All of them are somehow still there. And I think this is why older people often deserve so much more tenderness than the world gives them. Because no one is just old. They are layered. They are full of memory, full of selves, full of stories no one can see just by looking at them. No one told me that aging would be such a strange mixture of change and sameness. And I think understanding that helps us be gentler with ourselves. Yes, we have changed, but we are still ourselves. And that self still wants dignity, warmth, beauty, meaning, affection, and to be seen. The sixth thing no one told me is how much freedom can come with age. Now, of course, aging can bring limitations too. We must be honest about that. But there is also a kind of freedom that comes, and I do not think enough people speak about it. No one told me that one day I would care less about fitting in, less about pleasing everyone, less about looking exactly right, less about saying the perfect thing, less about trying to win over people who had already decided not to understand me. What freedom there is in that. You begin to realize that trying to manage everyone's opinion is a very exhausting life. You realize that people will think what they think. Some will misunderstand you if you are kind. Some will criticize you if you change. Some will be uncomfortable the moment you stop overgiving. And so, slowly, you stop arranging your whole life around reactions that were never really yours to control. No one told me that getting older could bring relief. Relief from performance. Relief from constant comparison. relief from trying to be all things to all people, relief from the pressure to remain who you used to be, and that freedom can be beautiful if you let it be. It frees you to be quieter, to be truer, to choose better, to wear what you like, to spend time how you like, to say no more honestly, to enjoy simpler pleasures without apology. I think one of the hidden blessings of age is that if you are willing, you can finally come home to yourself. The seventh thing no one told me is that my body would need kindness, not criticism. This one matters so much. So many women spend years criticizing their bodies. Too much weight here, too many lines there, too tired, too old, too changed, too far from what they once were. And the older we get, the more temptations there are to speak harshly to ourselves. But no one told me that getting older would make me realize just how much my body has carried me through. Heartbreak, work, childbearing perhaps, stress, loss, recovery, long days, sleepless nights, illnesses, ordinary living, extraordinary strain. This body stayed. It changed, yes. It slowed in some ways, yes. It asks for more care now, yes. But it has served. No one told me that aging would make me feel less interested in punishing my body and more interested in honoring it. Honoring it with rest, with gentler food, with water, with movement, with sunlight, with patience, with better words, with gratitude. There is something deeply sad about spending the later years of life at war with the very body that carried you here. No one told me that self-respect in older age often begins with softening the way you speak to yourself. Not giving up, not neglecting your health, but caring for yourself from reverence rather than disgust. That changes everything. The eighth thing no one told me is that home would become emotional, not just physical. When I was younger, home was often about practicality, running it, maintaining it, filling it, organizing it, making it work for everyone. But no one told me that later in life, home would become such an emotional thing. It would become atmosphere. It would become refuge. It would become a place where I either recovered or felt more depleted. You begin to care less about impressing and more about how a space feels. Does it calm you? Does it hold you kindly? Can your spirit exhale there? Does it support your peace? No one told me that a soft lamp in the evening, a clean blanket, a chair by the window, flowers in a jar, a little order, a little quiet, a little beauty, these things would one day feel almost sacred. Home becomes less about presentation and more about healing. And really, isn't that what so many of us want as we get older? Not a perfect life, but a life we can rest inside. The ninth thing no one told me is that getting older would make me simpler, but deeper. This may be one of the best surprises of all. No one told me that as I got older, I would need less nonsense and more meaning, less rushing and more presence, less noise and more truth, less quantity and more quality. Fewer people perhaps, but deeper connection. Fewer plans perhaps, but more enjoyment. Less proving, more being. The outer life may become simpler, but the inner life can become richer. You begin to notice beauty more. You begin to value sincerity more. You begin to understand what nourishes you and what only distracts you. You begin to appreciate an ordinary day in a way younger people often cannot yet fully grasp. No one told me that aging would make me see how little of life's richness was ever really about glamour or status. So much of it is smaller than that. A voice you love, a quiet room, a kind word, a peaceful conscience, a body cared for, a relationship where you can exhale, a bit of laughter, a little sunlight, a sense of enough. And perhaps that is one of the truest things no one told me, that getting older, if you allow it, can return you to what is essential. So, my dear friends, what is it that no one told me about getting older? No one told me that peace would matter more than excitement, that time would begin to feel holy, that loss would become both heavier and more illuminating, that relationships would become clearer, that I would still feel young inside in certain ways, that age could bring freedom, that my body would need kindness, that home would become emotional, and that life in many ways would become simpler but deeper. Now, does aging have its hard parts? Of course it does. It asks us to let go. It humbles us. It changes things we were not ready to change. It teaches us lessons we sometimes wish we had learned sooner. But it also offers something beautiful if we are willing to receive it. Perspective, discernment, tenderness, truth, a clearer view of what really matters. And I think that is worth honoring. If you are getting older and finding it difficult, be gentle with yourself. This is a transition of the whole being, not just the body. And if you are beginning to find some of these hidden gifts, then honor them too. They are hard-won, and they are precious. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this conversation touched your heart, I would love for you to tell me in the comments what no one told you about getting older. I always love hearing from you, and your wisdom means so much to this whole community. And until next time, please do something kind for yourself today. Sit in a quiet room for a few minutes. Step outside into the light. Make a lovely cup of tea. Call someone you love. Or simply remind yourself that there is still beauty in this season, and you are allowed to feel it. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this message spoke to your heart, I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you know someone who may need this conversation right now, please share this video with them. Take gentle care of yourself today, and I hope to see you in my next video.